Thank you, Graham, for the nice introduction. So as Graham said, my name is Hugo Peters. I work in the office of the CTO, and we are responsible for TIBCO Labs. And one of the TIBCO Labs projects is Project Discover. And with Project Discover, you can basically use process mining to discover insights in your organization. And that's what we'll talk about, how to go from process insights to action. So obviously, the usual disclaimers apply. There might be some forward-looking statements in this presentation, and obviously everything might be subject to change. I've created a small agenda for today. First, I want to do a quick recap of what process mining is and how it can help you. Then we'll talk about insights that you can get through process mining and how to get from those insights to actions. And then based on those actions, we'll do some investigations. And we'll actually demo that, create some custom investigations using the capabilities inside of the TIBCO Cloud. So first of all, process mining. And let me introduce this to you. So in my spare time, I sometimes like to go running. And what you see here on the sign is actually in Dutch, and it says you should not go onto the grass. So in the park, you basically have the paths and you have the grass, right? And people should walk on the paths. But if you look in the park, sometimes you see these things as well, which are basically paths that people have walked over. And if you imagine that these paths, the paths in the park are kind of your processes in your organization, and the paths through the grass are kind of what the people actually walk over. That is kind of what process mining does. It kind of shows you what people are actually doing in your organization. And if you find these things, then you can create like these sidewalks in order to prevent people to walk over the grass or discourage them to walk over the grass. And that's exactly what you can do through the investigations of the process mining solution. So with process mining, you basically take, let's say, the log files of your organization. And from that, you extract the actual processes, kind of the paths through the grass in your organization. So you can see what people are really doing, what processes they're really following. And Project Discover is basically TIBCO's implementation or TIBCO's take on process mining. And within Project Discover, you can use TIBCO data virtualization to connect to all sorts of different data sources. And this talk is actually the second one in a series, like Graham told you. And there will be a third one in the series that goes more deeper into this topic on how to connect to all your different data sources, which will be done by Florent, my colleague, in a few weeks' time. And then once you've connected to all those different data sources, you can take them into the process control center. And from there, you can analyze your processes through all sorts of visualizations. And from here, you can also create your investigations, as we'll see later. So once you've done your process mining, you can basically create these insights. And we use analytical tools, in this case, the capability of the TIBCO Cloud Spotfire, in order to look at the processes or look at the data, the process mining result from all sorts of different angles. And the first part of this talk was actually about this topic, where you could see how you could extend the DXP or the, let's say, process mining result yourself with all sorts of custom visualizations, which was done by my colleague Bruno. And if you haven't seen it, you can watch the replay on YouTube on that specific tool. All right, then let's talk about actions. And for actions, we basically use a capability inside of the TIBCO Cloud called TIBCO Cloud Integration Automate, which was formerly known as Live Apps. And I have a small video to introduce that to you.
In today's world, every market is undergoing constant disruption. For your business to stay competitive, it needs to be highly agile so that it can adapt quickly to rapidly changing business conditions. Every day, people throughout your organization see opportunities to help your business operate faster, smarter, and more cost-effectively. Because every company has a wide range of slow, human-driven processes that could be streamlined and automated. but your people lack the tools that could help them make business processes faster and more efficient on their own. Without the right tools designed to solve these challenges, your people must rely on your IT team, who often lack the time and proper business context, or instead, use tools built for skilled technology professionals. All this serves to slow progress and innovation across your business. To maximize agility, you need to enable people within all areas of your organization to adapt and improve the way your business operates themselves. You need to empower them with self-service tools that let them streamline and automate business processes, yet allow for human involvement within processes when appropriate, such as to approve exceptions or to address process errors. And you need to provide them with tools that don't require them to write code or learn technical jargon, but instead speak the language of your business, while allowing seamless access to your business data. TIBCO Cloud integration can connect the apps, data, and devices across your enterprise using any integration style, no matter where they are hosted. It goes beyond traditional integration platform as a service capabilities with easy-to-use yet powerful process automation capabilities. Now, anyone in your organization can adapt or create entirely new business processes that are more streamlined and efficient, often in a matter of days.
Yeah, so this introduces TIBCO Cloud Integration Automate, formerly known as Live Apps, and that's really the capability in the cloud that we use to create investigations. So let's do a demo of how you would create an investigation. So let's say you log into your Discover application and you've connected to the data, and then you run your process mining algorithm. Inside of the list of process analysis, you'll basically have a button to click View Analytics, and from there you get your results. So this basically displays the results that you get after the process mining algorithm. And from here, we can click on this tab called Reference Model. And here we see all the different variants, so all the different processes. And let's take the variant that was executed the most. And then here we see that specific process there. And then we can select this process as being the reference, which basically means we can compare it to the other variants. And then in the Compliance tab, we can basically take another variant and put it on top of that. So here we see in blue the steps that were supposed to happen, and in red the steps that were not supposed to happen, right? So from here we can create an investigation to basically say that this specific step was not supposed to happen, so that we're kind of out of compliance. So we can provide a summary. So we say, why do we execute this step? And then we can provide some additional details. And then from there, we've created the investigation. Then we can go to the Investigations tab. And on the left, we see the investigation type, improvement and compliance. And then here we can go through the investigation. So the first step will basically provide a comment for the investigation to see if this case was out of compliance or not. We submit this, then we refresh, and then we see that this specific investigation basically went to the next state. And then from here, we can make a decision. So we can say, okay, this specific step was not supposed to happen, so it's out of compliance, it's not compliant. And then we refresh it, and then we see that this investigation is now in an out of compliance state. So this basically demonstrates how we can run an investigation in the current system. But what we would like to do as well is create our own investigations. So define our own investigations. And for that, we go to the TIBCO Cloud and we go into the TIBCO Cloud integration, the automate part, so formerly known as Live Apps. And then from here, we can create a new application. And we have some applications that we can use as a template, or we can use this wizard. So let's create an application to add additional staffing to a step. The first thing that we need to do is we basically need to define the states of all this investigation, or for this investigation. So we have a created state, we have a staffing requested state, we have a staffing assigned state where we actually add the people to it, and we have an unavailable state if the people are not available, or if there's no people available to do this. Then we need to add data to our specific investigation. And the first thing that we want to know is how many people do we want to add to the step? And the second thing is obviously the step itself. Then we want to define actions, and actions really define on how do we go from one state to another state. So we have the staff people, we have the unavailable if nobody's available to do that specific step. And we have the, let's say, define the people itself. So put the names behind the people that wants to do it. So the planning step. And then for each and every of those actions, we basically need to define in which state is that action available, and to which state will that action go, or will the case go if the action was completed. So in the created and staffing requested state, we can run the step unavailable to go to the unavailable state. And we'll define that for each and every one of those actions. And once we've done that in this automation tool, the nice thing is we actually have this app flow viewer. So here in blue, we see all the different states that we have defined. And in green, we see all the different actions to go from one state to another state. So we kind of have a view over how our investigation will work. And what we can also do is after we've gone through the wizard, we can actually add additional fields and make additional changes. So here I've added some additional data fields to the investigation. Then we go back to our project discovery UI. And from here, we can basically configure to use this custom investigation. So we'll log in, we'll go to the admin tab, and there we'll find a section on investigations. Here you see the improvements and compliance investigation. And here we can add the staffing investigation. And then we'll obviously select the application that we have defined the investigation in. And then we also define the creator, and then here we make the mapping. So the summary, the case ideas, some additional information. And then inside of our investigation area, we also have this table that displays all the investigations. And here we can define all the columns. So we can basically add all the fields, and then we can also move fields around. So we can take, for example, the state column and then move it down so it becomes more right in the table. And then for every state that we have defined in our investigations, we can also give it an icon and a different color. So that's the created state with the V mark. The next state, we can basically make it yellow to say, okay, here the staffing is requested. And eventually we want to give the staffing assigned a green mark, or if there's not enough staffing, which is obviously a bad state, we want to make it red. Then we have the last section to configure is on the details of this specific investigation. And here we can add all the data, and that will basically define the detail panel for our investigation. And then we can go ahead and save the results. So if we save it here, now the settings are saved. And then we can basically go to the next step to use this custom investigation. So if we go back to our money requests, let's say result, and here we have the two steps, so assignment to the instructor and first level acceptance. And then here we see we have this additional investigation type called staffing. And we can basically say, okay, let's add 3 more people to the first level acceptance step. So we provide a summary of the investigation. Then we'll add some more details, let's say, for example, by next week, Tuesday. And then we create this investigation. And now if we go to the investigations tab in our application, we'll basically see that staffing is now part of the panel on the left. And then here we see all the configuration that we defined. So here we have the first question, which step do you want to assign? So these are basically the data fields that we added to our investigation. And let's say we want to add 3 people. Then you will see that the investigation goes from one state to the next state. So it's now staffing requested. So let's add a few people. Let's add Joe. Let's add Jane as well. And also let's add Mike to basically add more people to this step so we can bring the average time that step takes down. And then if we refresh it, we basically reach the final state of the investigation. So it won't be shown here anymore. So now, if we continue, I want to give a quick recap of the demos that I showed you. First, we did a normal compliance investigation. So this is an investigation that is out of the box with Project Discover. Then we used TIBCO Cloud Integration Automate, formerly known as Live Apps, to basically create a custom investigation. And then we configured the custom investigation inside of the Project Discover UI. And then we used that custom investigation from one of the analytics or one of the process mining results that we have. And that is really the objective of Project Discover, right? You investigate your processes and then you define your own kind of objectives, your own investigations, in order to make your processes run smoother, or in order to find improvements in your processes, or in order to find places where you are out of compliance. And this is basically what our customer in Vitalia also used to get that time savings, right? To really start analyzing the process over and over again. A last thing that I wanted to mention is that TIBCO will be a gold sponsor at the Process Mining Conference at the end of this month. So yeah, it's a physical event here in the Netherlands, in Eindhoven. We'll have a booth there, so I hope to see you there if you have additional questions or if you want to see more parts of the solution. Another thing I wanted to show you is these key resources. So you can get the Invitalia customer story. You can get the information on process mining itself, on Project Discover. And you can also get all the source code of everything that I showed you today from the GitHub webpage. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. And if there are any questions, please let me know.